Hello and welcome to MMCC-Raleigh's podcast, where we dive deep into faith, ministry, and the work God is doing here in our church. This is our first podcast. It is a virtual concept, and we have a special guest with us here today. It's his church, so it makes sense that he's our first guest here. So this month, Bishop McNair, and we'll get to it, but as this month is a part of our big deal focus, we are highlighting leadership. Again, we are honored to host Bishop McNair today and learn more about his journey as far as leadership, his insight, and his vision for the leaders of MMCC Raleigh. So, Doctor, Pastor, Overseer, Bishop McNair, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great, man. I'm glad to be a part of this. I'm glad that you all are functioning at such a high level of creativity with this.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate you. We appreciate you. So, like I said, it's exciting having you on today. So, listen, let's just jump right on in. Let's dive right on in. So, your leadership journey. Let's start by discussing, your background. Let's hop into that a little bit. So, could you share a little bit about who you are, your journey into leadership, especially within the church? What led you to this calling, and just let us know, how it has shaped who you are today.
Man, I think that my leadership journey started with, first of all, being a PK and desiring to be a great help or assistance to my father.
Mm,
Uh, just sitting on the organ, observing how ministry was flowing, what was happening in the church, and trying to find answers to particular problems. I think that led me to having a passion to create systems, to try to lead in certain areas, to be a help and assistance. And then I was literally raised to be a leader. That's just the nature of my father and the way that he raised us. Me, my sister, my brother, we were all raised in the likeness of that. And so it led me to be one who steps out to lead in certain situations. Even being an introvert, no matter what group I'm in, I feel the need, if I know the answer, to step out and try to lead the people in the right direction.
Excellent. I think we appreciate that insight. I think two things stood out to me in what you were saying. Number one, I feel as if you would have been who you are regardless, whether you were a pastor or a bishop, wherever you were, in whatever capacity in this world you would have worked in, you would have been a leader regardless, because again, that's how you were raised.
Yes, sir.
And I think sometimes people don't understand the way you are bred and the way you bred others matters. All right. So your leadership abilities, and we see that those of us who know you, who don't even know you personally, but can see you from afar, the church is the only thing that you have, right? A businessman, multiple businesses, you're a consultant. So you're a leader regardless. And you would have been that regardless, right? But because of how you were raised. I think the second thing that really stood out to me was you found yourself in this position by way of looking to see how to meet a need, right? It
Yeah.
wasn't something that you bogarted your way into. It wasn't something that you felt entitled to, right? It was something that came about as in serving, right? Leadership came about because you were a great serving person. That was your mindset initially, was to serve. And so I appreciate that insight, because I don't think sometimes people, you always hear, in order to be a good leader, you got to be a good follower. But when the initial startup or the precipice of you becoming a leader was you being a servant, I think that's something we need to highlight. So thank you for that. So moving on real quick, let's dive into some of your inspiration. So of course, leadership is a journey. It often requires great inspiration, and I think from your last answer I can kind of gather a little bit what you're going to say. But who do you look up to when it comes to leadership? Whether someone in the Bible, a mentor, another figure in your life, who's influenced you in your leadership style?
Well, my mentor is, I have two mentors, Bishop A.L. Wright, which was my preaching inspiration growing up. But as I been pastoring, actually sitting down and talking with him, and just listening to his journey and his advice that he gives me concerning leadership. He's been a great mentor. And then Bishop Ronald Godby is, I consider, a new mentor, who's both versed in ministry and business. They are both inspirations. And both of my parents are absolutely an inspiration to leadership and anything that I do. My mother is actually harder on me than my father is. So people don't know that. People see my mom and just see her nice soft voice, but she's
Mhm.
tougher on me than my dad is. But
No, no, I believe that there's no sharpening of a stone sometime like a black mother. And so, we thank God for them. Perfect. And look, one thing that I picked up from that, you said your second mentor was a newer mentor.
yeah.
Kind of dive into that, because I think sometimes we don't, in the advancement of whatever we're in, sometimes we can forget that, hey, your old mentors, those will never go away. But what inspires us or requires us, or what need did you see that requires you to say, hey, I need to pick up somebody new as well?
Yeah, I believe that number one, some mentors are seasonal for where you are at the particular stage of your life. And when I see our ministry growing, I'm trying new things with business, and so I need new perspectives, someone that's on a higher level that's doing it, which is why I actually reached out to Bishop Godby as a new mentor to give me something, another level of exposure, another perspective.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I appreciate you for diving in on that. Quick question. So let's move on to the next thing. So last Sunday's message on leadership, you delivered an incredible message about leadership and the importance of, upholding character. Could you share with our listeners, with the viewers, with the why character, it is so vital for leaders in the church, and how it ties into God's vision for leadership?
My father said to me, when I was a younger preacher, that your name is all you have. So I believe, your character is the real you. So you can function as a leader, but the question is, can you function as a leader satisfied with who you are behind closed doors? Which
Mm,
is why integrity is so important, because apart from you performing, doing what you do, can you live with you? Do you
yeah.
feel comfortable leading people in a direction that you're truthfully not operating in? So that's why
Mm,
I think the character is so important. And it just feels better as a person not to be trying to live a lie,
yeah. Yeah.
or trying to keep up with something that you're not, it's less
Yeah.
stress.
Gotcha. Gotcha. No, that was good. That's good. Um, but before I go on, before I expound on something, I ask you my next question. So give me. We're gonna talk about a memorable. Good gracious, cross me up real quick. My own word. Let's talk about a memorable leadership sermon, right? So, let's stop. Let's think back on your years of ministry. What is the most precious sermon you've preached on leadership? Or perhaps maybe one that someone preached that deeply resonated with you? And why did that message stand out?
I think the one that immediately comes to mind is a message I did last year entitled I'm Nailed to It. Um, I think because of where I was when I preached it, what I was dealing with, what I was battling, and I was fresh out of committing to being nailed to it. And the concept was that when you study the crosses where Jesus was crucified, and there was two other malefactors on cross beside him. Those two were tied to the cross because it wasn't customary to nail people to the cross in that time. They were tied to something that Jesus was nailed to.
Mm,
And so there was no turning back from the assignment. He was nailed to the assignment. And in a stage where battling giving up, battling throwing in the towel, and then seeing that throughout our churches. That's what developed that message to if you're assigned to this, then you got to be nailed to it.
Yeah, I appreciate that transparency. Even as a leader, I think sometimes people think that you are invincible or invulnerable, or even susceptible to the same, emotional, mental, physical battles, fatigue that everyone else experiences, right?
And as well as people think that you ain't got nothing else to do, right?
Right.
We had to shift our life to commit to this. And because we had to shift our life to commit, there's some battles that says, man, I could be doing something else. I don't have to deal with this level of stress, this level of problem. But no, if you're assigned to it, God assigned you to it, you got to be nailed to it.
Amen. Amen. With that, let me ask you a question. Would you say, and this is completely and totally off script, but a lot of times people look at leadership as glamorous. Would
Mhm.
you say that from your personal experience, leadership is a glamorous role?
It is not. The glamour that people see is the reaping of what has been sown that you didn't see.
Mhm.
You don't see people's process and what they went through to get to the place where you see them in a nice suit or you see them in a big house or you see them with a nice car. They had to go through something to get there, and people see the final product without watching the process.
Yeah, I think that actually ties perfectly into your initial statement of being nailed to it, right? You not being able to give up if you wanted to. And in leadership, period, regardless of what it is in life, whether we're talking about church, primary leadership, secondary leadership, wherever you are in life, whatever you have been assigned to your point, it is not something that you have the leisure of dropping. You don't have the luxury of dropping. People may pick up, leave, and go as pleased, but if it's assigned to you, if you're nailed to it, you don't have that option. You got to see it through. Perfect, perfect, perfect. I appreciate the actual little nugget that we received there. I appreciate you, Bishop. So next question. Give me, as our leader, give me some goals for MMCC Raleigh's leadership team. So, as you lead MMCC Raleigh, and give me two specific goals that you have for your leadership this year. And how do people go about, ensuring those goals are met, and how do you go about, making sure that they're sustainable?
Okay. Number one, and this is always a goal every year, and that is individual growth. That while you're working in ministry, I want the growth that you receive from growing as a church leader to spill over into your actual life. And you hear me say all the time, I don't want you to be a good Christian and a bad person, because I want the growth that you receive in the teaching, the training to spill over into your life so that you can see the benefits in your entire life. You know, I
Good,
think
good.
the second thing would be I want to see our people reap. Our people sow a lot of time, talent, and treasure into Mount Moriah, and I would love to see this year, which is why I declared so fervently on this past Sunday, a year of success. That I want to see
Amen.
our reaping the benefits of the work that they have put in.
Hey, if you're gonna speak it, if you're gonna give it, let me go ahead and receive that real quick from you. No, absolutely. And again, I appreciate that. As a leader, I can appreciate that, right? As a leader, I can appreciate um, you being someone who you want to see your people flourish. You don't want to just use, right? It is not your desire that you just be great here and you be proficient in the task that I have assigned to you, right? I want you to be good outside of here, and be great inside of here, be great on both sides. And so, as a leader, I can appreciate that. How, and again, kind of going off script here a little bit with, give me some of your personal goals for, as a leader for MMCC Raleigh this year.
Personal
And
goals.
and the reason why I'm asking this is I hear what your goals are for your leadership team, but and I heard you in saying and what you gave and why those are some of your goals, but how can us meeting those goals help contribute to the personal goals that you have for MMCC Raleigh?
I think that, well, one of my goals is to be even more um, stronger with communication. I know that I'm an introvert, and I know that in explaining things, I'm not as detailed as I can be because I'm an introvert. And so I give it room for people to try to read and interpret things themselves.
Mhm.
So that's something that I want to personally, I want to work on doing better. I do want to even be more visible. I have a crazy schedule, but I do want to be more visible for our people, for our church. That's a personal goal that I have. Something else that comes to mind is just being more involved. Sometimes our organizational structure can put a wedge because of the work that I have to do, but I even want to be even more involved. We're growing. I want to know who our people are as we're growing. So my goal is to even be even more involved.
Okay, absolutely. Yeah. I think that's interesting, because you said something about it this past Sunday. You say you used to always joke about, you want us to get to the point in growth. You don't even know who people are,
Yeah.
and it's starting to it's getting to that point. But to your point, there even being an adjustment in that, right? It being the next level. So even knowing now what is required for me to now say, hey, I do know who everybody is, even though
Yeah.
we've grown exponentially. So perfect, kind of just showing the even in evolvement of you as a leader as we evolve.
Yeah.
Okay, so next question. So, and this may be one of our last questions, real quick. Just kind of basically looking at time, but as far as leadership style and growth, every leader has a unique approach. How would you describe your own personal leadership style? And how do you ensure that you continuously time back in what we just said, how you are continuously developing and growing as a leader?
Yeah, so in my training, there's several different types of leadership um, that are out there. Autocratic leadership, which is kind of like a my way or the highway type thing. There's
Hmm.
transactional leadership, like I'm gonna do this for you, but I need you to do something in return. There's coaching style leadership, bureaucratic leadership. But I think that the one that fits me the most is transformational leadership. Because while I'm leading you, I want to see change and transformation in your life.
Hmm.
That's how I test whether I'm a good leader or not. If
Yeah.
you're following me, but nothing's changing in your life, then I don't think that speaks to good leadership. And I think the way that I continue to grow as a leader is exposure. I'm
Hmm.
always pushing for more growth, more exposure, more education, traveling to different things of professional development to better myself so that I can, in return, help others around me be better.
Hmm. No, I think that's good too. I think sometimes people think that if you are seeking help, I break it down in layman's terms. If you're supposed to be the leader, then how are you reaching out, trying to figure out how to be a leader, right? When that's not the case. All of us need help. And all of us in order to evolve and advance, you have to, continue in education. Every single job type in the world has some sort of continuing education, especially those that are technical and matter. But when dealing with people, even as a leader, it's just as important. One thing you said about transformational leadership. Let me ask you a question. Do you feel as if, as as someone who is, who feels you are a transformative leader, do when you take people in and take people under your wing, do you look at it in a sense where I know I'm training you. I know helping you grow, but essentially what's going to happen is I know all of this will happen for you to one day fly and do your own thing. Not necessarily quote unquote duplicating yourself, right? But in a sense, do you feel as if when someone comes into a certain proximity with you to the point where yes, they are under your leadership, right, as being trained as a leader, do you feel from the genesis that that's what will eventually happen?
Yeah, so and the spiritual side is that I'm an apostolic leader. So I know that number one, I am called to pastor gifted people. But in pastoring gifted people, you're preparing them for something. They're not going to always be with you. While they're working with you, you're training and developing them and trying to get them to a certain point because they're going to have to function on their own. And I want to prepare people to the place where not only can they function on their own, but they can also train somebody else.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah, no, no, that's good. I love that. I love leaders like that because that shows that it's not about self.
Yeah.
It's not about you. I feel like one of the biggest impacts a man can have upon the world is his tree, so to speak, right? His fruit, what fruit he has delivered. Whether I train somebody and they train somebody and they train somebody, it's crazy because 4 or 5, you know branches down, you still hear,
Yes,
the
sir.
leader, the initial leader. And so that's awesome. Um, so I tell you what, for the sake of time, Bishop, of course, thank you, for being our first guest. We thank you for sharing your journey and your insights on leadership with us today. Your wisdom, and your dedication to the ministry are truly inspiring. And we know it will encourage many other listeners. So again, thank you for pouring that into us. So before we wrap up, however, is there anything you'd like to share with the listeners, with the viewers, both online and in the sanctuary? About this year's about leadership or this month's focus on leadership. Anything you'd like to expound on for us?
Well, I think one of the things I always push is understanding the privilege of any assignment that you have been given. I never want to get to the place, no matter how much we grow, no matter how much we accomplish, that we overlook the fact that this is a privilege and we get to do this, we get to serve. So
Mhm.
humility is the biggest part of being a great leader, humility and absolutely integrity. So maintain your level of humility, understanding the privilege of the call, and then always walk in sincere integrity as much as lies within your power.
Amen. 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 We appreciate you, Bishop. Even in this, you can't stop a preacher and a teacher from being a preacher and a teacher. So even in this, we appreciate the gems that you gave to us, man. And God, we appreciate you. Like I said, once again, thank you for your time. Thank you for guiding the church with such grace and such purpose for being, an awesome and an amazing leader. For me personally as a man, and as a leader in different aspects in my life, right? I am appreciative of being under a leader who I can say, I'm submitted to, as a man. Just your integrity, the way you carry yourself, just how powerful you are as a leader. I personally appreciate that. And so again, thank you, sir. Yes, sir. So saints, let's take what we've heard today from our great leader. Let's find ways to uplift, power up, and empower other leaders in our churches, of course, as well as ourselves. And remember that leadership is a calling. We have a role to play. It is a privilege, like Bishop told us. And in playing and supporting our roles and those who guide us, let's make sure that we remember, at the very heart what it is we're doing and why we're doing it. So until next time, stay blessed, MMCC Raleigh. We love you.